Have you ever experienced a connection where someone seems to be drifting away, yet somehow never completely disappears? They become quieter, less available, and harder to reach, but there are still little signs that they have not entirely disconnected. It can leave you trapped in an emotional gray area where nothing feels officially over, yet nothing feels secure either. That kind of uncertainty can be more exhausting than a clear ending, because your mind keeps searching for an explanation. When something hurts, at least you know what you are dealing with. Confusion is different because it keeps the door open inside your thoughts. You replay conversations, question changes in behavior, and wonder whether their silence actually means they stopped caring. But emotional distance does not always mean emotional absence. Sometimes what looks like detachment on the outside can hide a much more complicated emotional experience underneath. This is especially important when you are dealing with someone who has an avoidant pattern of relating. Not every quiet person is secretly attached, and not every distant person is struggling with hidden feelings. But some people genuinely experience closeness differently. They may want connection while also feeling uncomfortable with the vulnerability that comes with it. Their instinct can become contradictory. They move closer when they miss the connection, then create space when that connection begins to feel too intense. They may care deeply, but struggle to communicate that care directly. Instead of saying what is happening inside them, they manage their emotions privately. To someone on the receiving end, this can look like mixed signals or emotional games. Yet sometimes it is less about playing a game and more about an internal conflict between wanting intimacy and protecting personal emotional safety. That conflict can make their behavior difficult to read. Attachment psychology gives us a useful framework for understanding why people can respond so differently to closeness. Our early experiences can influence what we learn about trust, intimacy, dependence, and emotional safety. Some people become comfortable moving toward others when they develop feelings. Others become more guarded when emotional closeness starts becoming serious. For them, vulnerability may feel risky rather than comforting. So when attachment begins to grow, they may not become more expressive. They may actually become more controlled. They might communicate less, take longer to respond, or create additional emotional space. This does not automatically prove that they are deeply attached, because only that person knows their true feelings. But understanding the pattern can help you avoid assuming that every withdrawal has exactly the same meaning. Sometimes distance is simply distance. Other times, it can be part of a complicated struggle with intimacy. The difficult part is what this uncertainty does to your own mind. When someone is predictable, your brain eventually knows what to expect. But when someone's behavior keeps changing, your attention becomes much more focused on them. You begin noticing every small detail because you are trying to understand the pattern. A message suddenly feels important. A delayed response feels meaningful. A change in tone makes you wonder what happened. You may start reviewing conversations that you would normally have forgotten because your mind is looking for information that could resolve the uncertainty. This is one reason inconsistent connection can become so mentally consuming. You are not necessarily thinking about the person because every interaction is wonderful. You may be thinking about them because your brain has not found a satisfying explanation for what is happening. Uncertainty keeps the emotional question open. That is why partial availability can sometimes feel strangely powerful. If someone were completely gone, eventually your mind would have clearer information to work with. But when they remain slightly present, the emotional situation stays unresolved. There may be occasional contact, subtle engagement, or moments when they seem interested again before becoming distant. Those small returns can renew your attention. You start wondering whether the connection is coming back, whether something changed, or whether the person still feels something they are not saying. Over time, you can become more focused on the fragments than on the complete picture. A tiny sign of warmth can carry more emotional weight than the larger reality of inconsistent behavior. This is where it becomes important to separate understanding someone from waiting for them. You can understand their pattern without allowing that pattern to control your emotional life. There is another reason this dynamic can feel almost impossible to settle internally. The human mind naturally prefers unfinished experiences to have an ending. When something feels unresolved, your thoughts may continue returning to it because there is no clear conclusion. You may find yourself asking the same questions repeatedly. What happened? Why did they change? Did I do something wrong? Do they still care? Are they afraid? Are they moving on? Every unanswered question creates another reason to think about the connection. The silence itself may not contain any special message, but your mind keeps trying to give it one because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. You are responding not only to what the person actually did, but also to what you expected them to do and what never happened. That gap between expectation and reality can create an emotional tension that lasts far longer than the interaction itself. Inconsistent behavior can make that tension even stronger because unpredictability naturally captures attention. When someone's behavior follows a stable pattern, you eventually understand it. But when the pattern keeps changing, you remain alert. One day they seem open, another day they seem unreachable. One moment they appear interested, and later they seem completely detached. Your mind starts monitoring the relationship almost automatically. You notice timing, wording, pauses, and small changes that might otherwise mean nothing. This does not mean every observation is accurate. In fact, uncertainty can make us assign meaning where there may be none. But the emotional experience itself is real. You feel activated because you do not know what to expect. That state can make the connection seem stronger than it actually is, because your attention remains intensely focused on it. Now consider what may happen on the other side of the dynamic. Someone with avoidant tendencies may also experience strong internal activity while appearing relatively calm externally. They may think about the relationship without talking about it. They may remember conversations without bringing them up. They may notice changes in your behavior without asking about them directly. Their emotional processing can happen privately, which makes it almost invisible to the person they are connected to. This is one reason people can misunderstand each other so easily. One person thinks they do not care because they are not showing anything. The other person may actually be thinking, I care, but I do not know how to handle how much this is affecting me. Those two experiences can exist simultaneously, but without communication, neither person can know exactly what the other is experiencing. For some people, emotional intensity does not automatically create emotional expression. It can produce restraint instead. The deeper the feeling becomes, the more carefully they may control what they reveal. They may become conscious of their reactions and deliberately reduce their outward behavior. From the outside, that can look like coldness. Internally, it may feel like an attempt to regain balance. Imagine someone turning down the volume because the sound has become overwhelming. The sound has not disappeared. They are simply trying to make it easier to manage. Emotional regulation can work in a similar way. When closeness becomes intense, they may reduce contact, slow down communication, or create physical and emotional space. That does not automatically mean love is present, but it can explain why some people withdraw precisely when a relationship begins feeling more meaningful. Another important sign is that emotional awareness can remain even when communication decreases. A person may stop initiating conversations while still remaining aware of what is happening with you. They may notice when your behavior changes or when your usual patterns disappear. They may remember small details even though they rarely mention them. They can remain mentally engaged while being externally quiet. This creates a strange contradiction where someone appears absent but still seems emotionally aware. However, it is important not to turn every small action into proof of hidden feelings. Watching from a distance, remembering something, or returning after silence can have many explanations. The healthiest interpretation is to recognize that indirect attention may suggest continued relevance, but it cannot tell you exactly what someone feels. Their actions over time matter more than isolated moments. When emotional closeness becomes difficult for someone, they may also become more careful about vulnerability. They might share certain parts of themselves while protecting others. They may enjoy connection, but hesitate when conversations become deeply personal. They might open up and then suddenly become quieter afterward. This can feel confusing because you may think the emotional opening should naturally lead to greater closeness. For a guarded person, however, opening up can create a sense of exposure. Once they realize how much they have revealed, their instinct may be to step back and regain a feeling of control. That retreat can be painful for the other person, especially if the previous conversation felt meaningful. But again, the retreat does not automatically reveal what they feel. It reveals that something about the level of emotional exposure has become difficult for them to manage. This is where the push and pull pattern becomes easier to understand. Imagine two forces operating at the same time. One says, I want to be close to this person. The other says, I need enough space to feel safe. When the desire for connection becomes stronger, they may move toward you. When the fear or discomfort around vulnerability becomes stronger, they may move away. The cycle can repeat because neither side completely disappears. This does not make the behavior healthy or fair, and it does not mean you should tolerate inconsistency indefinitely. It simply explains why someone can appear genuinely interested at one point and distant at another. Their emotional experience may be changing from moment to moment, even though the relationship itself has not changed dramatically. Some people also process emotional experiences long after the interaction ends. They may replay conversations privately, consider what they said, think about what they did not say, and examine how the connection affected them. Because this processing happens internally, you may never know it is happening. You might assume that their silence means they have forgotten everything. Meanwhile, they may still be thinking about the same interaction. This difference in processing speed can create another layer of confusion. You may want immediate clarity, while they need distance before they can even understand their own feelings. Neither response automatically makes one person right and the other wrong. But when two people operate at completely different emotional speeds, the relationship can become exhausting unless there is eventually enough communication to create mutual understanding. One pattern that sometimes appears after withdrawal is selective re-engagement. A person may disappear for a while and then return through a small message, a casual interaction, or another low-pressure form of contact. The return may not contain a declaration or even an obvious emotional message. It may simply reopen the door slightly. This can happen because the emotional pressure has decreased enough for them to tolerate contact again. But the same pattern can also happen for many other reasons, including loneliness, curiosity, habit, or wanting reassurance. So a return should not automatically be interpreted as proof of deep attachment. What matters is whether the person eventually becomes more consistent, communicates honestly, and takes responsibility for the impact of their behavior. Reappearing is not the same thing as building a relationship. There can also be a difference between emotional attachment and emotional availability. A person may feel something and still be unable or unwilling to create a stable relationship. These are two separate questions. Someone can think about you, miss you, or feel emotionally affected by you without having the capacity to show up consistently. This distinction is crucial because otherwise you may spend too much time trying to decode hidden feelings while ignoring visible behavior. Feelings matter, but relationships require more than feelings. They require communication, reliability, respect, and willingness to participate. Understanding someone's emotional defenses should never become an excuse for repeatedly accepting behavior that leaves you anxious, uncertain, or emotionally depleted. Another subtle feature of avoidant patterns can be the way emotional pressure influences communication. When things feel casual, communication may be easier, but when the conversation begins touching deeper emotional territory, the person may become more restrained. They may change the subject, respond less, or create distance afterward. Again, that does not prove they secretly want the relationship. It may simply mean that emotionally demanding situations activate discomfort. The important point is to observe the pattern without immediately assigning a romantic meaning to it. You can recognize that someone struggles with emotional exposure while still acknowledging that their struggle affects you. Compassion and boundaries can exist at the same time. You do not have to demonize someone to decide that their current way of relating is not enough for you. Another thing worth noticing is how emotional timing affects these relationships. Someone may appear open during one period and guarded during another. Their capacity for closeness can change depending on stress, personal circumstances, emotional exhaustion, or how vulnerable they currently feel. This can make their behavior appear inconsistent, even when their internal pattern is relatively predictable. They may have a certain threshold for intimacy, and once that threshold is crossed, they need space to recover. Understanding this can help explain the rhythm, but it should not encourage you to constantly monitor their emotional state. You should not have to become an expert at predicting when another person will be available enough to treat you well. Healthy connection requires some degree of mutual stability, rather than one person constantly adjusting themselves around another person's internal limits. There is also a tendency for emotionally distant people to become more careful as their feelings become more significant. That sounds backward, but it can happen. If the relationship feels unimportant, there may be little reason to protect themselves. But when the connection starts carrying emotional weight, vulnerability becomes more consequential. They may become more conscious of expectations, commitment, rejection, or the possibility of losing independence. Instead of expressing more, they may become more measured. This can make deeper feelings look like reduced interest from the outside. But once again, we cannot know someone's private emotions simply by observing withdrawal. What we can know is that emotional significance and emotional availability are not always the same thing. This is also why you may feel that someone's absence is somehow louder than their presence. When a relationship becomes emotionally uncertain, the missing pieces become noticeable. You remember the moments when they were close, because those moments now contrast sharply with the silence. Your mind compares the present with the past and tries to determine which version of the person is the real one. Was the warmth genuine? Was the distance genuine? Did something change? Or were both states part of the same pattern? The answer may be that different emotional states were genuine at different times. Someone can sincerely enjoy closeness and sincerely feel the need for distance afterward. That does not automatically make either moment fake. It means their ability to manage intimacy may fluctuate. Emotional memory can keep a connection alive internally, even when there is little current contact. Past conversations, shared experiences, familiar routines, and meaningful moments can remain psychologically important long after communication slows down. A person does not need to talk about those memories for them to exist. Likewise, you do not need constant contact to keep thinking about someone. This is why a connection can feel emotionally active, even when very little is happening externally. But emotional memory is not the same thing as an active relationship. Remembering someone does not necessarily mean wanting to return, and missing someone does not necessarily mean being ready to build something healthy with them. Those distinctions protect you from turning every internal feeling into a prediction about the future. Sometimes the most important thing to recognize is the difference between hidden attachment and your own interpretation of uncertainty. When someone gives you very little information, your mind may create a larger story to fill the silence. You may assume they are thinking about you because you are thinking about them. You may interpret a small interaction as evidence of deep emotion because you desperately want clarity. That does not mean your feelings are wrong. It means uncertainty can influence perception. The safest approach is to hold interpretations lightly. Notice patterns, but do not build your emotional future around assumptions. If someone truly wants a meaningful relationship, eventually that desire needs to become visible through consistent behavior. You should not have to solve a psychological puzzle just to know where you stand. There is a powerful lesson here about emotional attachment itself. A connection can feel intense without being stable. Someone can have strong feelings without knowing how to express them. Someone can miss you without being prepared to come closer. Someone can be emotionally affected by you and still choose distance. These contradictions are possible because human emotions are not always organized or logical. But understanding that complexity should give you more clarity, not more reasons to wait. If you recognize that someone may be struggling internally, you can respond with compassion while still protecting your own peace. You do not need to chase them into vulnerability. You do not need to prove your worth, and you do not need to decode every silence. Ultimately, the real mystery is not whether every distant person secretly loves you. The deeper truth is that emotional distance can have many meanings, and you cannot reliably determine someone's private feelings from silence alone. Some people withdraw because they are overwhelmed. Some withdraw because they are afraid of vulnerability. Some withdraw because they are no longer interested. Some simply do not have the emotional capacity for the relationship you want. The only way to distinguish these possibilities over time is through patterns of behavior, communication, and consistency. If someone repeatedly returns but never creates stability, the return itself is not enough. If someone cares but cannot show up, their feelings may be real, while the relationship remains unavailable. And if someone chooses distance without explanation, you are allowed to accept what they are showing you, rather than endlessly searching for a hidden meaning. So if you find yourself caught in this kind of emotional uncertainty, remember that understanding someone does not require abandoning yourself. You can recognize why a person might pull away, while still admitting that their behavior hurts you. You can believe that they may have complicated feelings, without turning those feelings into promises they never made. You can appreciate the connection you experienced without allowing unfinished emotions to keep you trapped. Sometimes the greatest clarity comes when you stop asking, "What are they secretly feeling?" and begin asking, "What is this relationship actually giving me?" That question brings you back to reality. Hidden attachment may explain someone's behavior, but it cannot replace communication, consistency, and emotional availability. And once you understand that distinction, their silence becomes less mysterious. You stop treating every distance as a secret message and start looking at the relationship as a whole. That is where real emotional clarity begins.